Hi, my name is Victor Sandoval, and I'm a staff cloud solutions architect with VMware. I'm here to cover this module on how to run a successful POC and the best practices for running a POC on VMware Cloud on AWS. The importance of this module is to help you conduct a successful POC for VMC on AWS. Activities such as gathering business and technical requirements are paramount in developing a delivery plan. It is also equally important that you have a broad understanding of VMC on AWS and the components that make up and connect to the solution. This will help you design, deploy, and manage the environment to meet your business and technical requirements. For your convenience, this module has been broken up into 5 different lessons. Lesson 1 covers some of the basic activities for POC planning. Lesson 2 goes through the process of deploying a software-defined data center and some of the testing activities you want to do as part of your proof of concept. Lesson 3 goes through data center extension. Lesson 4 goes to cloud migrations, and Lesson 5 covers disaster recovery. Lessons 3 to 5 cover basically the most common use cases for testing VMware Cloud on AWS. Let's get started. POC planning. The objectives of this lesson are to familiarize you with developing a POC plan, identify use cases for VMC on AWS, identify technical requirements, and identify issues or missing information that could possibly delay your proof of concept. The first step you want to do is organize your technical teams, owners, and any key stakeholders. Your technical team should be encompassed of the following team members: storage, networking, security, and vSphere administrators. Once you have your technical team in place, it is recommended that you have a VMC solution overview workshop with your technical team. Although most of the customers that are running VMware Cloud on AWS are current VMware administrators, some of them may not be familiar with some of the technologies that encompass an SDDC running on VMC, such as NSX and vSAN. Therefore, it is recommended that you run this workshop prior for you deploying your software-defined data center, as it will give you the foundation for you to identify business requirements, objectives, and success criteria, as well as give you a better ability to gather technical requirements. Once you have run your workshop and you have gathered these requirements, you have to develop a POC schedule. Your schedule usually is encompassed of the following activities, such as spinning up your SDDC, configuring the network to connect to VMware Cloud on AWS, deploying service add-ons depending on your business needs, such as SAR recovery, data center extension, HCX, hybrid link mode, and many more. Finally, you want to test your use cases, record your data, and destroy your software-defined data center upon completion. You want to align your business requirements to VMC on AWS use cases. And typically the use cases for VMware Cloud on AWS fall under 4 different buckets, such as data center extension. This falls for customers that want to use VMware Cloud on AWS as an extension to the current on-premises environment. The second, and probably the most popular use case, is disaster recovery. This is for customers that want to leverage VMware Cloud on AWS as a new DR site, or maybe to complement the current DR solution. The third use case, and probably the second most popular one, is cloud migrations. And this usually involves our technology HCX, Hybrid Cloud Extension, which leverages you the ability to either migrate a specific application or entire data centers over into the cloud to VMware Cloud on AWS. And finally, next generation applications is mainly for customers that are currently leveraging AWS resources and want to build the next generation of apps. Want to bring the best of both worlds, which is VMware and AWS. You'll have the ability to have a virtual machine running on VMware Cloud on AWS, consume native AWS services such as RDS, S3, and many more. Your solution workshop is to bring your team members up to speed and capabilities of VMware Cloud on AWS. Now, your solution workshop should encompass the following activities. You should bring your team up to speed on the capabilities of VMC's compute platform, such as the different instances available to them, such as i3 and R5. You should be covering things such as VMC storage. For example, some of the policies regards into vSAN and how you're going to be managing your SDDC from a storage perspective. VMC networking, what is a T0, how many T1s do I have, and how do I manage my SDDC from day-to-day basis. And finally, you want your workshop to cover add-ons based on the requirements you have collected, such as, am I going to be installing site recovery, hybrid cloud extension, Horizon, hybrid link mode, etc. Now that you have the workshop and your team is brought up to speed, you are better equipped to gather the technical requirements. Now, the purpose of this module is not to go through every single requirement that you might encounter in the field, but rather give you a framework or some of the requirements that you're going to see more likely than not. For example, more than likely you're going to set up an IPsec tunnel from your on-premises environment back to VMware Cloud on AWS, and you need to have a networking discussion with your team on the following. Which networks am I going to be exposing to VMC? Am I going to be using policy based or route based VPNs? And am I gonna, is my VPN concentrator sitting behind a NAT? Also, for those customers that are currently using AWS and have the capability to connecting to AWS through a direct connect, they may want to test this capability with VMware Cloud on AWS as well. It is important that you familiarize yourself and your team with the requirements of Direct Connect prior to deploying your SDDC, as this will save you time and headaches. And finally, from a layer 2 perspective, VMware Cloud on AWS has the ability to extend layer 2 from on-premises to VMware Cloud on AWS. You need to ask yourself these questions if this is a requirement. Which networks do I need to extend VMC and why? And am I extending subnets that are part of my management, vMotion, or any other management network? Or perhaps am I extending networks that I'm already exposing through an IPsec tunnel? And the reason why you want to have these conversations because you don't want to get in a situation where you are stuck in a routing loop. Now that we have covered some of the main network technical requirements, let's cover some of the computing technical requirements that you're going to see while running your POC. Most customers that want to POC VMware Cloud on AWS more than likely will put workloads such as SQL, Oracle, or other mission-critical workloads on VMC. Now, licensing usually comes as a big question when putting workloads such as SQL and Oracle, and it is recommended that you read our documentation on cloud.vmware.com for further information on the requirements for licensing such workloads on VMC. For additional information on running these critical workloads, I recommend that you see some of the other presentations by my colleagues, such as Oracle Reference Architecture, SAP Reference Architecture, and Microsoft SQL Reference Architecture. You want to familiarize yourself with the different instances available on VMware Cloud on AWS, such as R5 and i3. And I recommend you do this prior to you deploying your software-defined data center, since once your SDDC has been deployed and your cluster has been set up, you cannot change the instance type. You will have to destroy and recreate your software-defined data center. If you're planning on testing a cloud management product such as VROPS, VRA, or a third-party cloud, I recommend that you have this product installed prior to deploying your software-defined data center, as you don't want to be stuck setting up an installation on premises and having to configure your production environment at the same time. If you're going to be testing a third-party backup product, I recommend that you look at the VMware compatibility guide to make sure that it is compatible with VMC on AWS. And finally, let's cover some of the add-on requirements that you might encounter on the field. If you're planning on testing site recovery, for example, verify the Site Recovery Manager and vSphere replication have been installed on your on-premises environment. This will save you time as well as headaches when running this POC. If you're planning on testing HCX, Hybrid Cloud Extension, verify your version of vSphere and make sure that it is compatible with HCX. Also note the version of the switch that you're running on premises. For example, are you running a virtual standard switch, or are you running a virtual distributed switch? And is this compatible with the kind of migration that you want to do? For example, a live vMotion or a bulk migration. If you plan on testing things like hybrid link mode, HCX, verify the following. Will you be deploying the cloud gateway as part of this service? Is my version of vSphere compatible with hybrid link mode? And is my SSO on premises peered to an Active Directory or a third-party LDAP service? As these are requirements for you to install HCX. Regardless of your technical validations and your gathering of business and technical requirements, you need to have these three prerequisites for deploying in an SDDC. I'm going to go through them. You need to have a My VMware ID. Now, My VMware ID is used for accessing cloud.vmware.com and accessing your SDDC. Now, this is a requirement for you to create your SDDC. From an AWS perspective, I recommend that you have an AWS account ready. Now, this is not a requirement for the first 14 days of your POC, but if you plan on running the POC for longer than 14 days, you will need to pair your SDDC to an AWS account. So in my opinion, I would recommend that you have this information prior for you starting your POC. You need to identify where you're going to be deploying your SDDC on which AWS region. As well as any subnets or VPCs that you want to be peering to your software-defined data center. And finally, from a networking perspective, you need to identify the IP space you're going to use for the management subnet on your SDDC. This is this IP space will be used for components such as vCenter, NSX, vMotion traffic, etc. And you want to make sure that this management IP space does not conflict with the IP space on premises. And finally, you want to make sure that you have the information of the subnets that you're going to be deploying on your newly deployed software-defined data center. And again, if you want to go ahead and test Direct Connect as well, I recommend that you familiarize yourself with that technology prior to you deploying your software-defined data center. Thank you for this lesson. We have covered the following: how to develop a POC plan, identify use cases for VMC on AWS to solve business requirements, identify technical requirements, and identify issues or missing information that could delay a POC. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next lesson, which we're going to be covering SDDC deployment and testing activities.